Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back and I have an interesting video for you. Today I'm doing kind of a VR. I had some private messages come through asking about the Stanley Basecamp Cookset. One of the questions that was asked was can you cook 3 pounds of ground beef in that pot? Well, I'm going to show you in this video today that you can absolutely, without a doubt, cook 3 pounds of ground beef. And I'm also going to show you a wet method of making muscle fat tallow. So stay with me. I hope you enjoy the video. So for this video, you can see that I have the Basecamp Cookset. In the back, I have a MSR Whisperlight Universal Stove that I'm going to use today. I have some water. I have a container to put the ground beef in after it cooks. Here's a strainer. Here is the 3 pounds of ground beef that I'm going to be using, and I have obviously a wooden spoon and a knife to open the package. So you can see that when I purchased the ground beef, it's important, if you want to make tallow, that you get the ground beef that has the most amount of fat, because the more fat that we have, the more tallow we can make. And I'm going to fill, I don't know, maybe 1 liter of water or something. It doesn't have to be too much water, so I'm just filling it up to roughly to this line right here. And that's what I like about the Basecamp Cookset and most of the Stanley products, is they have a very nice, easy to read line that you can see inside. You know, you can see inside the pot there. So it's very easy to figure out how much water you need. So I'm going to put that, I'm going to go ahead and get that started on the heat. Get that water warmed up. Let's go ahead and use the lid. And in the meantime, I'm going to take my Mora here, and I'm going to open this ground beef. Nothing too crazy. This is a simple process. This is the same way I make my tallow every time. Now, the tallow that we're going to make today is muscle fat tallow. True tallow is made from the kidney fat from the animal. Now, the tallow that we're making is not made from suet or the kidney fat. This is actually muscle fat tallow, but it's still tallow. It's good for making soap and candles and things like that. And you can cook with it. Some of the best French fries that I've ever had are made using tallow, as the grease to deep fry the French fries. Now, my table is plenty clean. I just wiped it down, so don't freak out when you see me throwing these little pieces in. So I'm going to take this 3 pounds of ground beef, and you can see that it fits in there with no problem. This is a lot of ground beef, and I'm having no problems fitting it. In fact, I could probably put 5 pounds of ground beef, to be honest. It might even be possible to put 2 of these in there, and a total of 6 pounds. I have plenty of room, and the water is just to prevent the meat from burning. So I'm going to go ahead and get this boiled up. Now, one thing that I like about the Basecamp Cookset is this handle here is cool to the touch. So that's what we got going on right now. Things are starting to look well. These handles, they do get warm on the side. So I like to have a rag or something to hold those. So I'm just kind of smashing the ground beef around. We're just going to boil it. This is actually a very good way of cooking ground beef if you're going to make like hamburger helper, if you're going to put the ground beef in your spaghetti or something, because it takes all the fat out of the meat. And you're left with the tallow, which is really good for making, like I mentioned earlier, soap, candles, cooking French fries and potatoes. Tallow is an excellent material, or grease. It's kind of like lard, but it's a little harder. So we're going to let that cook a little more. Here on the top of the meat, you can already see the fat starting to separate from the meat. You can see the layer of tallow starting to form as the meat cooks. And this meat hasn't been on here that long. But I'm going to continue to let it cook. But like right there, you can see the color. You can see the yellowish color of the tallow. I'm going to let it continue. Folks, we are not even, I doubt it's been 2 or 3 minutes and I'm already seeing steam. We're already at a rolling boil. This stove is working really good. I'm in liquid feed mode right now and the stove is performing amazing. 1 liter of water was plenty of water for this process. So I'm just mixing this stuff up, trying to break it up a little bit, and I just let it cook until it's all brown, until it's all done. I kind of smashed with the back of the spoon, I kind of smashed against the side of the pan here. Nothing too crazy, just to break up the bigger clumps. And you know, I'm really impressed with the MSR Whisperlight Universal. It's a great stove, really, really good stove. We're not even up to the capacity of what this pot will hold. This Basecamp Cookset it's an awesome set. It really is. Let's see what we have going on. Things are looking good. You can definitely see the tallow separating from the meat, and the meat is almost cooked. It's actually cooked pretty fast. This is a great pot, folks. I really like this Basecamp Cookset. For those of you who might not know, I am the president of the Stanley Basecamp Cookset, so if you want to join the Basecamp Club, all you have to do is have this kit and do a video of cooking and send it to me and we will get you on board. You can join the club. And if you want to join the Green Bowl Club or the Green Cup Club, I'm definitely involved in that as well. I'm not the president of those clubs, but I'm definitely a proud member of both of those clubs. Okay, I think this ground beef is probably about done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this container, and if you have a metal container it works even better, but I'm going to use this plastic one. I use these ice cream buckets and they work pretty good for me. I'm going to put the sieve right here on the top, and I'm just going to start pouring out some of the water into this container here. You'll notice the first thing that comes off the top is the tallow itself. So there is my ground beef. Take my spoon here, and I'm just kind of pressing the spoon down, just kind of smashing the water out, I guess you could say. And let's get the rest of this in there. I just want to make sure that I get all of the water out of here, because that's the stuff that's tallow, and that's the stuff that's unhealthy for you to consume. You don't want to eat the tallow. That's it's all fat is what it is, obviously, so it's not too good for your heart. So that's why we try to extract the tallow from the ground beef. Now if you wanted to rinse the meat again, you could put more water in here and do this process a second time if you wanted, but I usually only do it the first time. But I just clean this bucket out so it's nice and clean. Let's go ahead and turn this stove off. Take it a second, and then I just smash the meat down just to get all the liquid out of it. And so all this ground beef is cooked, fully cooked. It's ready to add to whatever we're cooking. In our case today, we're making Mexican lasagna. I do have a video on that if you wanted to check that out. Just search my channel for my Mexican lasagna video. It's a really good meal. And then all of our ground beef just goes right back into here. And if we look real close at this container, you'll already see the separation starting right here. This light colored layer on top, that's the tallow, that's the fat, and then this layer underneath, that's all the water. I have some cold water going on top of this, and the reason for this cold water is two things. One, it'll help quicken the amount of time that it takes to solidify the tallow, and two, the cold water will help the container hold itself together without melting through. You can see that the tallow is starting to solidify, so at this point I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and let it finish solidifying. Okay, the tallow has sat in the refrigerator for probably half of an hour. So now I'm going to open it up. It's plenty solid, and what I want to do is I want to get the water out and pull the tallow itself out. So this is what the tallow looks like. At this point you can take like a butter knife or some sort of utensil and just kind of scrape the top of the tallow, or bottom rather, and get rid of all the junk. You don't necessarily have to do this step, but I like to get rid of all the junk off of it for the most part, but it's not completely done yet. I'm going to wash some cold water over it just like that, and then what I'll do is I'll break it into some small pieces, and from here it's going to solidify a little bit more. I have a container that is full of tallow pieces that I keep in the refrigerator, and every time I render some sort of hamburger meat or something, I take the tallow out and I put it in this container. When this container gets fairly full, that's when I put this container on the heat source. I warm it up. I don't get it like super hot. I just put it on a nice medium flame. In fact, once I get it on there, I turn it down to low, and I let it sit there just to break it up and put it into a liquid state. The tallow is at a low boil. It's on a very low heat. Everything is melted. Now we're going to pour the tallow through that makeshift filter. So I'm going to grab here, nice and easy. Let's come over here. Let's take a look. And what this does is this filters out all the junk that might have been in that tallow, because this is many different batches of tallow all in one. We're just going to let it filter, you know, and it's going to get out any impurities that might have been floating around in that tallow, any debris, or sometimes you'll get cloth debris from your rags, or you might have dog hair or leaves if you're out in the field, anything like that that gets in the tallow. And so we're just going to let this filter through. It usually goes pretty quick if the temperature of the tallow is fairly warm. So as you can see, our process is pretty good. It's going fairly quickly, usually a matter of minutes, and we're finished. And the main thing that I want to stress is that we are using a plastic container, so we got to keep that in mind. We don't want to get it too hot where it's going to melt the container. Things are going well. It's going through the filter and it's getting rid of any thing left behind that might be in that tallow. I'm looking at my bucket and I'm filling my bucket, and it's filling good. It's not too hot for the bucket, so everything's good. Okay, we've had plenty of time to let this filter through. You can see that it left behind quite a bit of debris, you know, meat debris and stuff like that. So I'll just set that there for right now. And you have a couple of options right here at this point. If you want to have a solid block of tallow, you can run this and set this in the sink in cold water and have one solid block. Maybe you want to filter it again or something like that. Or in my case today, you can see that I have this little silicone mold, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make small tallow ingots. They're easy to store, they're easy to use, and so if I'm going to be making some candles or something like that, they're a lot easier to manage. They're very simple, and I like it because it's smaller pieces of tallow. And when I'm done with these, after they solidify, I put them in a container, which I'll show you here in a minute, and they end up going into the freezer. So these are a very good example of how I do my tallow. In the bottom of the bucket here, I'm seeing a little bit of water residue, and that's sometimes normal. I didn't dry the bucket out completely, so the water will separate naturally from the tallow, and it'll be at the bottom of the ingots once I pull them out. So I'm going to let that sit for a while, let them solidify, and in fact, if you want to put them in the refrigerator and help that process go a little faster, you can. If you got any kind of flies or bugs or anything flying around, you don't want them getting on it, so wax paper works good to keep the flies off. That way they don't plant their little whatchamacallums in there. Sometimes when you try to move this silicone tray, it's hard to, so I usually like to slide a cookie sheet or something under it. This makes it where I can pick it up as a unit, as one piece, and move it over to the refrigerator. So that's what I'm doing here. Just get that on top of this, and it just helps make the process of moving it a little easier. You'll see I'm spilling tallow everywhere. They get hung up. Don't worry about if you spill a little bit on the cookie sheet, because it'll solidify and you can pull it off later. So that's what I have on the cookie sheet. Now I can safely move this in one piece over to the refrigerator. So here are the ingots. You can see that they're not quite dry all the way, but I'm going to set them in this little bucket back here. They have to cool a little bit and finish solidifying completely. But I'm going to put them in this little bucket, and then from here they're going to go into the freezer, and that's where I store them, in the freezer. So whenever I need to make candles or soap or anything like that, I just get in the freezer and I get this little bucket out, and I pull out however many ingots of tallow that I need for whatever that task is, and they'll be ready to go. So this is a very simple method that I like to use to make tallow. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Please feel free to leave your comments down below, like this video, share this video, and if you like the type of content that you see on my channel, please don't hesitate hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to have you. And until next time, folks, thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and we'll talk at you next time. Bye-bye. Now get out there and get you some high-fat content ground beef and make yourself some muscle-fat beef tallow. It's good stuff. Makes excellent bars of soap. Have a good one. We'll talk at you later.